So today, as I said, we're going to talk about tools and technology. And before we get going, we want to talk to you a little bit about Learn. And oh, that's right, you're controlling that one.
Sorry. Sorry, I clicked in the wrong place.
I'm thinking I'm a technology turd today instead of a nerd. So yeah, so Learn stands for Lifelong Education and Aging and Resource Network. Darra, would you go to the next page for me? And we're an Idaho-based nonprofit organization with the mission to provide high-quality community education on retirement, age-related topics in the area of health, wealth, lifestyle, and caregiving. And Learn is a leaders network out of the Society for Certified Senior Advisors. Our content is always for general information purposes, and it's not to be considered as legal, financial, or health advice. Please consult with your advisors or other service providers before taking any action based on the information presented. So today, our sponsor is Life Changes Elder Care Consulting. I'm proud to say I am the owner and founder of Life Changes, and we offer professional help for you as caregivers to help manage and support the needs of those that you love. Today, it is both Darra Wray and myself who are presenting. Darra is the founder of My Data Diary.
And Dee, as she's already introduced herself, is the founder and care manager with Life Changes Elder Care Consulting.
Great. Today, we're going to talk about tools and technology for family caregivers. And this is a presentation that's near and dear to Darra's and my heart. So Darra, would you kick us off today?
I will. And if you'll just go ahead and click to the next slide. This is a quote that resonates really close to the heart for both Dee and I. And Rosalind Carter stated actually in 1974, I think, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And it was in these early 70s, family caregiving was actually one of her priorities as First Lady of the United States, that along with mental health. And I dare say we've actually made more progress on supporting mental health as a nation than we have in supporting family caregiving. But Rosalind has remained very active in family caregiving and has the Rosalind Carter Institute at the University of Georgia, where they focus on family caregiving still to this day. So Dee and I have done a lot, and we could introduce ourselves professionally, but for a moment, I'd like to introduce myself personally, and then Dee can introduce herself, because we're really here both as professionals, but bringing our experiences as family caregivers and what we have applied and what we have learned, and we want to share that with you. And I have had the pleasure and the heartache and the joy of being a family caregiver. And I've now realized that since I was 10 years old, when my mother became ill for the first time. And I've cared for parents, parents-in-law, great aunts, my own children that had special needs at certain times, a very ill spouse, and family. Those are the people that we choose to call our family, but they're really just friends who become family, and have had a myriad of experiences throughout my lifetime that became important for me to begin to share some of those learnings with others so that they could learn from what I've done and do better than I did in some cases. And Dee?
Thank you, Darra. And similarly, you can go to our website, the Learn website, which we really hope that you'll do, or to our individual websites and read our professional bios out there, because they're long and impressive. But I think what's even more important is that not only have we been in your seats, we're still in your seats from a family perspective. And so while I've owned my business for 9.5 years, I've really been doing this my whole life. I'm the oldest of 3 children. My mom went back to work. So I've learned how to take care of others from a very early age. And it is just part of my nature, part of my soul, as it is Darra's. So last night I was staying the night with a friend who had a knee replacement and needed someone to stay overnight with her. So I think, not only do we come at this from the professional perspective and the roles and learning that we have, but the day-to-day of it, about how hard this job is. And we know that it's one of the hardest jobs on the planet. And often caregivers are under-recognized and underappreciated because of how much time and heart that it takes to be able to do this work. And so we've had a lot of learnings along that way.
We have. And the first thing we've learned is most people don't identify first as a caregiver. They identify as a daughter, a son, a husband, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a granddaughter. It's the relationship basis, and it really comes down to that. But importantly, through all of these experiences, we truly have learned that having the right information and resources and tools in the right place and at the right time can save you time, can save you money, can save you a whole load of frustration. And if you click one time, Dee, depending on the information, it could even save your life. And so making sure, or resources or tool, it could save your life. These are life-saving things at certain instances. And so what we want to share today are tools from very basic to very medical to other things that just to give you an idea and hopefully spark an interest. And our goal is if there's just one idea you take away from here that will help you as a family caregiver, make it easier for you or easier for the people that you love, that would be a win today for me.
Absolutely.
So we're going to focus first on technology for caregivers, and then Dee will focus on technology for care, as she is in the care management side. So in the technology for caregivers, I've told you I've been a caregiver. I did it a lot, many times, actually 13 different people I would officially classify myself as a caregiver for, a recognized family caregiver with core responsibilities throughout my life. And I was nearly 50 years old when I went through a situation where I didn't have the right information in the right place and at the right time. And it was chaotic. And I felt like I was a very successful professional. I had done this before. I should know better. And I just put my hands to my head and said, why didn't I do this? Why wasn't I more prepared? Why didn't I have the tools and the information that I needed? And I realized because it was kind of hard to do, and there's a lot, and it was overwhelming. And I started to do some research, and I want to share some of that research with you. And then I'm going to share some things I learned and some tips I have. So, what do we know? Click once for me, Dee, please. So, one of the things that's become harder is you have to have this information. And this situation where I was in, I didn't have the appropriate healthcare power of attorney when I needed it. I didn't know where to find information about a financial situation, and I had to go scouring, and there were some late notices coming. I felt very overwhelmed. And the digital transformation that's happening in our schools, in our hospitals, in our healthcare institutions, in our banking, education, they're making it harder to access that information if you don't have the right permissions to access that information and the right passwords and the right access. So we know that the enterprise digital transformation is accelerating, which makes it theoretically easier to get to your information, but you need to have the rights to that information. And with that digital acceleration, which theoretically, there are some great wins here, right? I love that I can renew my prescription with the click of a button on my phone. I can confirm appointments. I can do things. People are asking me if I need things based on my patterns that are helping me. Privacy concerns and regulations are increasing. So we know that there's all kinds of health regulation around HIPAA and the permissions you have to have, financial regulation in the regulations around FERPA, that's the Financial Regulation Board, and then the FPR, which is for education. And so actually FERPA is education and FPR is finance, but you have to have all of these regulations in place to protect us. And I love that we're being protected, but as a family caregiver, I hate HIPAA. It's hard, right? If you don't have exactly the right permission in the right place, you're not going to get the information you need. And so we need to figure out how to solve that challenge as family caregivers, making sure we get that taken care of. And then finally, we all know that the demands on the individual are growing. So I said I've done this 13 times, and I keep telling people I think that was the last time, and I've really come to realize it's not the last time. This is likely going to be something I continue to do for my friends, my family, and my family throughout my lifetime. And the demands on the individual are growing. And they're growing for two really interesting reasons. One, we're living longer, right? So we're living longer with needs, and they're not necessarily acute needs, but we live longer with needs for support. And over the last 50 years, we're having less children. So we're living longer with fewer children and grandchildren. And so where in 2010, there were 7 adults to care for every 1 person in need, it's expected that by 2030, that ratio is only 4 to 1. And so anybody who thinks it's not going to continue, it actually is. And there are really good demographic reasons for it. So if you go to the next one, what I want to talk to you about is, okay, I've just told you it's getting harder. There's more coming. There's fewer people to do it. And so now what I want to do is talk to you about updating your caregiving toolkit. And we've built our toolkit around how to do things and how to care people over a lifetime of experiences caring for people. And there are some things you can do to harness all of this great digital acceleration and update your own toolkit so you get some advantage. So the first one I want to talk to you about is the Family Information Organizer. And this is a baseline toolkit. And whether you do it digitally or analog in paper, this is the key to your success as a family caregiver as a foundation to make sure that you have the right information at the right place and at the right time. Click once for me, Dee. And when you think about, you're maybe thinking, well, what are you talking about, Darra? And what I want you to think, ask yourself this question. If you got the emergency phone call, you define that. For your family, the person in your charge, your spouse, would you have the information you need to take over someone else's personal affairs for some period of time? Short term, maybe even permanently. And the information you might need includes family information, household information, health information, financial, legal information, all kinds of things. And if you click one more time, Dee, I've given here a list of kind of the main subcategories under all of those things. And what I'm going to tell you, they're the things we take for granted, that we just know. We just know how to do these things. And I'll give you an example from my own life as I was trying to figure something, trying to manage something in my own household. I needed to go to the mailroom. My husband was out of town. I didn't know where the key was. So he told me where to find the key. And then I realized we had lived in this house and my husband had picked up the mail on his way home from work for 10 years. And I had no idea what mailbox number was our mailbox number. And so I was having the most outrageous conversation, not in any kind of crisis, but having this outrageous text conversation with my husband going, what is our mailbox number? I had no idea what my plan was. Was I just going to go into the mailroom and open one of until I hit the right box out of 1,000? I mean, just that these things we completely take for granted. And that was a non-emergency situation, but goodness, if I had needed to get something, that could have been a crisis if I couldn't reach him. So this is an idea of the types and categories of information that you need. And if you think about it, underneath each of these things, it's hundreds, if not thousands of data points with your account information and where you bank and your health information and who your physicians are. And having that information for somebody else to be able to access or for you to be able to more effectively manage someone else's care, all in one place and organized is really critical. I don't want you to worry about frantically taking any notes. There's handouts on the website, and we can show you how to get to them at the end of today, and you have a link in the information you've received from us. So you can go out and get this information, and this is one of the slides in the handouts. If you'll click one time, Dee. So as you think about what you're going to do for your family information organizer, as I mentioned, it can be physical paper files, if that's what you're more comfortable with, and in a binder or in folders. Just make sure you have an idea of how you'll keep that information with you, and make sure you always have the most critical information with you if you are not home. I actually had one client that carried all of the health records and everything else. The filing box was in the trunk of the car, because if she was home, the trunk of the car was in the garage. If she wasn't home, the trunk of the car was with her wherever she was. And so she had her paper files with her wherever she went. If you're ready to take that digital leap that's happening in our world today, there are all kinds of great solutions around how to store this information on your computer either in the cloud or on a storage device, and making the choice about which you use has to do with your preferences around security and access to information. Encourage you, as you think about which system is going to work best for you short term and long term, really you also need to think about how are you going to store this and share it, because gathering information that someone else doesn't know how to get to can be problematic as well. And you need to decide who you're going to share what pieces with. You might have someone in your family you're willing to share all of it with, but you might be more selective and you might just want to tell someone where to find the information in case of emergency, but for you to control that information. So you need to have a sharing strategy, and you have to have an updating strategy, because in order for this to be really beneficial for you, you have to update that information at least once a year. And I really encourage my clients, when we're working on this kind of foundational aspect of their information management, to do their update at least right after they file their taxes. Because when you've been putting your information together and filing your taxes, you have all kinds of information already open. It's pretty easy to get those updates together and make that part of that process. And then make sure you have a backup plan of who's going to take over all of that information if something happens to you, particularly if you are the primary caregiver for someone else and a family caregiver today. We all end up with a bit of an expectation bias. We think, I'm going to be here forever to take care of that person. And this was actually the crisis I referred to earlier. My father-in-law had been in the care of our family, and particularly my mother-in-law, for years, and had a chronic illness that we expected him to predecease her by far. And she got sick unexpectedly and died very quickly in a matter of a week. And we were completely unprepared for her to go first. And so I really encourage you to think about, if you're the keeper of the information and you have the keys to the information kingdom in your household, who would take care of that information if you couldn't? And who would have that information if you couldn't? And we ask this because that experience of that expectation bias is not unusual. And there is actually a large percentage of caregivers who die before the people in their care do. And I'm going to just tell you what that number is. It's actually 30%, it's in the 30% range. There's different studies out there, but it's between 25 and 35 is what I've seen. So I picked 30%. And this is just, there's somebody left who needs care, and all that information needs to pass to someone else. So your first tool is family information. And if you just click right through this one, Dee, this is in, and let it build out completely. This is in the handouts, and you can see that I've divided this into some choices you can make. And I'll tell you that the criteria I used, and Dee mentioned that I founded My Data Diary, which is a tool to help with this. That is, my criteria was to be complete, integrated, secure, available, up-to-date, shareable, and affordable. And what I've done here is I've articulated there's various pieces and parts of solutions. And so you can have a paper-based solution. And if what you're most concerned about is complete, integrated, shareable, and affordable, this is a great solution for you. You can build one yourself, or there is a product called Caregivers Toolbox on the market that's a great product. So as you're looking across here, you kind of see, where do you fit in the information that you need? Do you want something that has everything in one place? Or do you want a point solution, right? A point solution is just my health information or just my financial information. And you can find portals, point solutions that do that. There are a few end-to-end solutions that are web-based. So I've got web-based solutions on there. And then there are some software solutions, and mine is one of them. And you can kind of see how they all fit together. And if you're interested in looking at different solutions for family information management, I've given you the names of those tools in the market, and I encourage you to go take a look and find the one that best meets your needs and the needs for your family. So the second tool in your toolkit, if you'll click one more time for me, Dee, is your electronic health records. And while that certainly can be part of your family information organizer, if you're managing information for someone who is in care, you're likely going to have a great deal of information on your on the portal of your health system that you're going to want to manage. And you may need to combine multiple health system portals. So I have 5 people that I manage information for in my family. And between the 5 of us, we have 17 electronic health record systems that I need to access, have passwords for, have the right HIPAA permissions for, and be able to get my blood tests, my x-rays, my physician reports, whatever the case may be. And I envision a day when it truly will be interoperable and all of these systems will talk to each other, and someday we'll all be able to, I don't know, retinal scanning or tongue scanning or something, we'll be able to get all of that information and it'll be identified as ours. But for now, we have a long way before we get there. So until then, I encourage you to think about how you're managing the information that currently sits in all of those electronic health records. I will tell you that I download all of mine and I put them in my own personal repository because I don't want to have to remember where I had that test. As soon as I had it, I go download it, I put it into my family information manager in the health section, and I don't have to think about it anymore. That's my preferred solution. But think about your electronic health records, and if you have multiples of them, how do you access them? How would someone else access them if they needed to get to your information? And how do you manage that information carefully? The third tool we're going to talk about is my favorite tool, and it may be the one that, if you haven't thought about your telephone this way, this may be the one thing you take away from today and go, oh my gosh, it never occurred to me. This is my favorite tool in my toolkit, and I love my tools. And I'll tell you why, because there is more power in the palm of your hand than it took to put a man on the moon. Seriously, we have more computing power in our phones than we did to put a man on the moon. And my favorite tool on my phone is my camera. And I take really cute dog pictures and some pretty awesome food pictures. But my favorite thing to take pictures of are prescription bottles and health insurance cards and various identification. My latest addition is all of our COVID vaccination cards that I'm going to need to prove. I have them on my phone. I have a picture of them. I created a little folder. They're all there. I have it wherever I am because we all know that this is not far from our appendage, right? It's in our hand almost all of the time. And part of this is habit. You need to think about your phone in a new way, and you need to train your family to think about what they need to help you with. So I'm going to tell you one little story that I really like about this. I've been talking about the importance of this kind of information for about 3 years now, quite actively. And my daughter is now 16. And, she's heard me give this speech a lot of times and knows what I do with this information. And she got her learner's permit. Actually, when she got her full driver's license, it came in the mail and, it had the whole thing. And she was so excited. She opened the mail and she showed me the license and she had this big grin on her face and she went to put it in her wallet. And she goes, oh, wait, here, Mom, I know you want to take a picture of it. I was like, yes, success. I have trained them well. So now they know, and they're building that same habit for themselves. The next tool that I want you to think about using on your calendars, on your phone, is a shared calendar. So if you're sharing responsibilities with other people in your household, trying to remember who's taking children or loved ones to doctor's appointments or therapy appointments or hair appointments or whatever it is you're doing for caregiving, we share a calendar as a family for those types of activities. And so we use the basic calendar that's available on your phone to put appointment coordination, indicating who's in charge, and medication reminders and various things like that. So think about how you can use that calendar that's in the palm of your hand. And then I'm going to share some of my favorite free apps from the App Store. This is the Apple App Store, but the Samsung App Store has similar. And I will tell you that my favorite one is document scanning from Genius Scan. There is a free document scanning app on your phone. I don't like it as well as Genius Scan. And Genius Scan is also free if you're willing to put up with some advertising. But I can literally take a 30-page legal document and turn it into a digital document in a minute and a half, because you put your phone over the top of the document and you take a picture of the first page, and then you turn pages and you take a picture of the second page, and you just take pictures of the pages that you need. and then you email it to yourself. So careful here. I don't suggest that you use this tool if you're going to be taking pictures of highly sensitive documents that you don't want to put in the cloud or over the computer. But most of the documents that we need to do this with are not that sensitive. And most of the information in the documents that I find is discoverable somewhere else. So as long as you're comfortable sending that information electronically, Genius Scan is a great tool. I also share a tool called PhotoMine. It's one of my favorites because I'm telling you, some of the best information we have as families is our family history, and that family history includes amazing photographs. And it is a wonderful activity to sit with family members and look at old photos. And PhotoMine is a scanning app that will allow you to take an old photo, you take a picture of it, it will correct it digitally for you. It'll do all kinds of things where, you might have edges that need to be corrected, coloration that needs to be corrected, and it will allow you to note on there who was in the picture, where it was taken. You can put as many notes as you want, so it becomes a great family documentation, family history documentation tool. And then, of course, the ever popular list makers, where I don't know what I would do without mine. And this is another one we share as a family. We share a common grocery list, and when something runs out, it goes on the grocery list, whoever goes to the grocery store. We have a grocery list, a Home Depot list, a Walgreens list, and I'm not suggesting what you should have for your family. You need to think about where do you go and who runs those errands, but how could you use a tool like this to share more information more efficiently with your family, whatever that may be. So the power in the palm of your hand. Next slide, Dee. Okay, we're almost filling up that toolkit. And the last tool I want to talk to you about are the digital services and tools that we've become pretty familiar with, much more so in the last year with COVID. But I'm going to walk you through digital tools, and I'll probably share a story or two because I can't help it. So my very favorite here is Amazon and Amazon Prime, and I will admit that my FedEx driver and I are on a first name basis. I may have a problem, but even as familiar as I am with these tools, I have to retrain myself to use them. So let's just look at what some of those tools are. You've got online shopping, mobile banking, grocery pickup and delivery, prescription delivery, house calls and telehealth, personal safety and health tools if you're needing to keep somebody on watch, Uber and Lyft to transport you somewhere, restaurant meal delivery, and entertainment engagement. So stop there for a second, Dee, and I'm going to tell on myself, but hopefully as a way to encourage you all to think about these things differently. So my father-in-law is someone who's still in my care. And as familiar as I am with my FedEx guy and my exercise on my Amazon Prime account, my father-in-law called me in the middle of summer, 2 summers ago, and said, "Oh, Darra, I just put my toe through my sheets. Next time you come over," we had just been over the day before, "could you please bring me a new set of sheets?" And I'm thinking, oh goodness, of course. And in my head, I'm already starting to try to solution. What local store is going to have the sheets? And how can I get there between meetings, after work, between all of these other things? And of course, as my mind is going to this traditional way of solving problems, he says, "Oh, and don't forget, I really love the flannel ones." It was July. It was hot. Flannel sheets in July. Now, what store is going to have flannel sheets in July? And as I'm like having this moment of, oh my gosh, where am I going to find flannel sheets in July? He says, "And I really love the red ones." Oh, dear Lord, I need to find red flannel sheets in July. And then it occurred to me that I could look for them on Amazon, and literally on my way to my next meeting, I searched for red flannel sheets. Not only did I find them, they were free shipping because I'm an Amazon Prime member, and they delivered the next day to his house. He thought I was a freaking magician. It was awesome. So really, it wasn't a natural response, right? When we get into that caregiving problem solving response, it wasn't a natural response. And I'll give you one more because it's another really good story and it's true. We were headed over to take him to a doctor's appointment, and his doctor's appointment was between our house and his house. He lives an hour and a half away. and we got held up, and we were worried that we were going to miss this appointment because we weren't going to be able to get to him and then backtrack to the doctor's office. And it was out of our control. And we had waited 2.5 months for this doctor's appointment. This was going to be a really bad situation. I called Uber, and I had an Uber show up at his house. And I called him and I said, there's a gentleman by the name of Randy. He's driving a black, I don't remember what it was, Audi. He will be arriving at your door in 20 minutes, and he's going to pick you up, and he's going to take you to meet us at the doctor's office. Not something I would recommend all the time, either for cost or safety reasons. But in this case, it was worth the trade-off. And we made the doctor's appointment and felt very comfortable and safe doing that. So you have to really, in this booming digital tools economy, you need to really start thinking about, how can I solve this problem differently? Whether it's telehealth or Uber or delivering dinner, whatever it is, there's amazing solutions out there. And the final thing I want to share is the resources and the advisors and the experts, because in addition to those digital tools and solutions that are out there, your toolkit should include some experts and advisors when you need them. Sometimes you just can't and shouldn't go it alone. And so when you think about experts and advisors, and I ask my clients all the time, tell me who your advisors are. Usually they will name the 4 on the left. They might have an accountant, they might have an attorney, they probably have an insurance agent. Sometimes they'll have a retirement advisor or financial advisor. But when they get into more advanced needs for care, they don't necessarily and haven't necessarily consulted with these specialists that can help them think about aging in place or senior housing or home health and hospice, what Dee and her team do as geriatric care managers with Life Changes Elder Care. Amazing services. And sometimes having the right resources in place is what will save you time, money, and frustration. So don't forget that when all else fails, you don't need to go it alone. And there really are expert advisors out there who will pay for themselves many times over sometimes with good advice and time saving and money saving activities. So this is my way of saying, take that power of digital into your own hands and these tools and technologies, and really start thinking about how you rebuild your toolkit with some of these new tools. Your family information organization system is the foundation, electronic health record management, leveraging your smartphone. Go take pictures of all of your pill bottles. You'll have all of your prescription information right on your phone. Best thing you could do for yourself and your digital services and tools. And hopefully start thinking about how to build some efficiencies for yourself into your toolkit. So thank you, Dee. I have one more here. The reason why this is important is family caregivers spend an average of 13 hours a month managing administrative tasks for people in their care. And realistically, people think this won't be a long time. And if you click one more time, Dee, managing care for other people can last a really long time. And the average caregiving role is about 4 years. And 24% of us are in an official caregiving capacity. 24% of the time it's more than 5 years, and 15% of the time it's more than 10 years. So 13 hours a month for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, that is a lot of time. And I want you to use this toolkit, these tools and these concepts to skinny that down and take that 13 hours to 10 hours or 8 hours and figure out a way to make it more efficient, so you can spend more time loving on those people in your care and less time pushing paperwork.
Excellent. Thank you, Darra. I was just going to add, I was meeting with a client this week, actually the end of last week, and I was meeting with the kids, the adult children, as well as the parents, and the kids were just looking at their parents saying, you know, we know nothing about your business. We know nothing about how you manage your business. And they have an extensive business, and they were just freaked and overwhelmed because mom's health has been compromised. She's been in and out of the hospital a few times, and it's possible that mom die and they don't know anything about anything. And dad has early stage dementia, And there is a real scramble to try and put this stuff together. So it sure makes a lot of sense if you can do this stuff early and then share the information with key partners, so that they know, even if you're not ready to share it, they know where it is so that they can go get it, that it's already been organized and put together for you. So it's an incredible tool. And there's, as Darra said, there's lots of ways to do it. Some more paper and some more electronic. So we'll kind of see how everybody falls out along that line.
Well, and to that end, what Dee was saying, you know, when I know she hears this from most of her clients, and I hear it all the time. These words are often said: I don't want to be a burden, right? None of us want to be a burden to our loved ones, and this information burden can be really extensive. And so putting your own ducks in a row and getting your own information together is a gift you give yourself, but importantly, your loved ones too.
Exactly. So along that line, sharing story, my parents both had their healthcare power of attorney documents done for and powers of attorney for finance and their wills. And so they were thinking that everything was all shored up for us kids should we need to step in for help. And the bottom line is that was core and foundational information, but it was just the beginning. And I literally had to take 6 months off from my work to be able to figure out my dad's kind of complicated financial life and figure out what was legit, what we wanted to continue going forward. He'd also been scammed because he had early stages of dementia, and that added a whole additional pieces that we had to sort through. So literally full-time, 40 hours a week for 6 months to figure out what I needed to do to make sure that his financial health and well-being was taken care of, in addition to his health, no question about that as well. But it was, I went through 3 full file cabinets of documents and paperwork and trying to make sense of what went where. So I encourage you, I know they didn't want to be a burden, but that was a heavy one. So we have opportunities to do things different. So I'm going to turn the direction just a little bit at this point in time, and we're going to talk about technology for care. So from the caregiver standpoint, to help provide care for the people that they love. And, you know, this particular area is just growing vastly every day. And certainly through the pandemic, we've come to learn that, yes, actually telehealth and video meetings with your doctor work really well. And we can get some pretty good health care having those meetings over Zoom or the prioritized HIPAA protected platforms that they use. And so that's helped a lot. I would imagine that's helped a little bit with going to the doctor, Darra. I mean, you get to dads, you can Zoom in with the healthcare provider when they're that far away. But even, you know, if we even just talk about the phones, so many of our clients have children that are out of the area. So even if we've gone to a meeting with our client, a doctor's appointment, I can conference in or FaceTime in the client's adult children, because they still want to know what's going on, even though they're not able to be here to help with the whole system. So, you know, Zoom, Skype, those platforms have become very, very helpful to all of us during this last year with the pandemic. But some of the other tools to focus on are things like first alert systems. There's many. They all deserve good research about what they're going to do. You can get them anymore with GPS. So even if you leave the house regularly, and maybe even you're still driving, you can have a first alert system that will tell the 911 system exactly where you're at. And if you push the call button, actually it would be the provider of the first alert system can tell where you're at, and then they can communicate that with the emergency service personnel. So they've gotten smaller, they've gotten to have better range, bigger batteries. These are the kind of systems that you want to wear 100% of the time, except for when you need to charge it. But, you know, the showers are the greatest place for falls. So you want to be close to your first alert, preferably wearing it, or you're out in the yard doing some gardening and there's a fall and you hit your head. You want to be able to call for help for where you're at. There's more telehealth happening. So blood pressure cuffs that can be read digitally from afar. including thermometers and blood glucose monitors. So now people are not having to prick their finger as often to draw blood to find out how their blood sugar is doing. They wear a little button or a little device on their arm, and then they have another little pocket gadget that is set with ranges and limits, and that it will go off if your blood sugar goes too high or go too low. If you need to check on a reading, you just run it over the top of the device that's connected to your arm that's monitoring your blood sugar. It's really phenomenal, and it really empowers people to have a lot more control over their blood sugar because they see it happening real time without having to prick their fingers.
It's been liberating for a lot of diabetics that I know, including my 13-year-old niece. You know, she's a type 1 diabetic, and this has allowed her to return to a very active life in a way that she felt very limited before.
And to make quick adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you need a glucose tab? Do you need to take some insulin? Whatever. That, yes, this is definitely a freeing technology that's quite amazing. Things like caption calls. This is a program that's just amazing, and many people don't know about it. It's free. It is a service that folks who are hard of hearing can request a caption call phone. And the phone's a little bigger, has a better speaker, but you can also request that conversations that you're participating in be presented via teletype. So someone is literally listening to your call as they type it in. I suspect that will change as the dictation feature becomes more readily available. Those of us that use smartphones and use the microphone to dictate are used to doing this all the time. Of course, occasionally you get some really crazy messages because we don't read them before we push the send button. But this is a phone service that is available, government funded. There's lots of tools out there like this one. And as long as you're using it, you're welcome to keep the equipment until you no longer are. There's things like floor mat or chair mats or bed mat alarms. So when you have a loved one who you need to make sure that perhaps they're a fall risk, and so they need to not get out of bed without someone standing by them to make sure that they get out of bed safely, or their chair, or they actually do end up on the floor, but there's a mat there that catches them, so it's a softer fall, and it alerts folks, whether it be in the home or in assisted living, that this has happened and someone can get to your loved one quickly. The car cane is one of my favorites. It's certainly not digital technology. It's you know, just real, the car cane is just a structural piece that is so helpful to anybody that has difficulty getting in or out of a car. It's also good for breaking the windows if you pull your car into some water, and it has a little razor in there. It's protected to tear your or to rip your seatbelt if you're in a car accident and can't get out. But to just hook the silver piece into the little hook that your door hold your door shut in your car gives them a steady weight to be able to get themselves up and out of the car on their own. One of the newer pieces of technology that I just love is the external female catheter. Men have always had it kind of had a benefit on this one compared to females, because we didn't have a way to be able to directly catch urine when somebody is incontinent. And they have been using these in hospital for a long time, but recently they've made these available to individuals, not only in hospital, skilled nursing, assisted living, or in your own home. So if someone is incontinent at night, they can wear this device. It literally sucks the urine away from them and they don't wake up wet. Couple of other things, the Apple Watch is really amazing. I believe it's version 6 and beyond. You can actually, I can get an EKG done on my watch. So if I start to feel like I'm having an AFib attack where your heart flutters, rather than it just being nerves, I can push a button on my watch and it will literally do an EKG and tell me if I'm in AFib or not. And then I can communicate that to whoever's around me to get me to a hospital. I'm having an AFib attack. I don't have AFib, but I have clients that have AFib. And so it just empowers you to know what's going on with your health real time. One of the others is a stay active monitoring system. So rather than necessarily having cameras in the home, you can have monitors in the home, and monitors kind of this system learns behaviors. So if your parent is usually in the bathroom in the morning, say 20 minutes, doing whatever we do in the morning for 20 minutes, but on a particular day, it's now been an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, and they haven't come out of the bathroom, it can send an alert to your phone saying, hey, mom's not come out of the bathroom in an hour and a half. So maybe she's fallen. Maybe we can get a hold of a neighbor or someone else in the house where she's at and say, please go check on mom, make sure she's okay. So we can see what's going on by motion sensor detection. And when things are out of the usual, ask for someone to check in on them. Echo Show, and there's a number of other tools. I was just looking at one. Facebook has a new tool as well that we can have conversations with each other real time. We can show pictures on them, so they just kind of rotate regularly. But it's a way to physically see your loved one, not just hear them, because we can do a lot with the tone of our voice. But when you look at somebody and you can see maybe they look a little disheveled, they look really tired, that maybe a little more intervention would be helpful. Things like the Echo Show can be helpful. Similarly with Alexa Echo. I mean, there's hardly anything we can't do without Alexa there. We just have to be real careful and not say her name. I think mine's not lit up right now, but whenever I say her name, she tends to light up and she's ready and standby to go with what I want to ask her to do. If we're lucky, we have a little video clip for you at the end. So these are just a few of the technologies that we can do from the caregiver end to help us do our job better. There are cameras that can be set up in a family member's community living area. I wouldn't set them up ever in the bathroom. I think we're always balancing privacy with safety and security, but I know I used cameras in my parents' room when they were in memory care, and I could do my very best to see a fall coming and try to forewarn the staff before the fall happened. Or, one time I watched another individual enter my father's room, and so we had two 83-year-olds or 80-year-olds having a little fist fight. It was not really very fist fighty, but it was a little tussle in the room, and I had recall of what had actually happened and was able to kind of mitigate some perceptions about who they thought was the troublemaker and who actually was the troublemaker. So we want to use these things for good and for the safety and protection of our loved ones and those that we're caring for. So we have a couple of websites that are really exceptional websites. This page will be in the handouts that we're going to show you in just a little bit. But CanDo is actually a company that provides technology real time for folks who are not technology oriented at all. So equipment can be bought, they can set it up, they can do classes and teaching on how to use it. They have great, actually I use the CanDo web handouts on Zoom when I'm working with clients and they're not familiar with Zoom. I just downloaded their instructions. It's great step by step, and send them to the client or the prospect to help them be able to have a Zoom meeting and start to empower them to use this technology. So the other two are there as well. You can see that. And, in my whole journey of caregiving with my parents, I learned early on that the head in the sand approach to aging is not only ineffective, it can be harmful. And that example of my father being exploited was one of those things. I knew that there was changes happening for both my mom and dad. They were not their normal selves. Some of their processes were slower, their decisions, we were calling into question what was going on. And I kept telling my sisters, we really need to learn what we need to learn. And then time would go by. And unfortunately, it was when he wasn't paying his long-term care insurance that I got notified, and we learned that he had been scammed to the tune of over $200,000. And that's hopefully a worst case scenario, but actually it isn't. I know people who have lost their homes to these scammers. And so head in the sand is not a good approach. It can be harmful physically, mentally, and certainly financially. So we want to take advantage of technology being our front line, our eyes and ears relative to what's being seen and and what we're hearing. So we want to be prepared, be proactive with all of this. So one of the things that Darra is offering today, because it is an incredible tool, and Darra, I'll let you take over from here.
Thanks, Dee. As you think about your foundation of, that's okay, your foundational family information organizer, I've given you the list of many products that are out in the market, and you can certainly do this with binders yourself. But if you are interested in an electronic tool that is secure and not web-based, that is the style of tool that my company has created. And for Learn attendees, we offer a 15% discount. So I encourage you to find the solution that works best for you and your family. If it's our solution, we're proud to offer a discount through Learn. And then Dee, I would actually like to share one more slide and that I intended to put in here, if you can stop sharing. Because it made me giggle when I saw it, and I just, need to put it up there. I grew up watching, can you see this? So I grew up watching the Jetsons cartoon, and I remembered thinking how futuristic so much of this is. And what we've shared with you today, many people, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we wouldn't have even ever dreamed, because home office, where we've all spent the last year and a half, online classes, where we all are today, telemedicine, where we have come and we've just talked to you about, and video conferencing with Echo Show and some of these other things. These very futuristic concepts are real and accessible to all of us today in ways that truly can make our lives better. And I hope truly that you have taken away from today just a little bit of inspiration about how to harness the power of one or some of these tools for your personal advantage.
I would only like to add, I need Get Smart on there, because I literally can take a phone call on my watch.
Exactly.
It just blows my mind away. People say, you sound a little different. Oh, I'm on my watch.
Yeah. And my children tease me because they, oh, a gadget. I like a gadget. So I want to thank Dee for partnering with me on today's presentation. While we have presented this one, this is the 8th in our spring series, and we're just launching our summer series of events. And I want to take this moment to thank Dee for co-presenting with me today, but also for sponsoring our spring series to bring this free community education to the Treasure Valley from trusted advisors and experts here local in the Treasure Valley.